Gavotte by Lully.
Very nice. Thank you. Lovely, and you took it at a real speed. I wasn't expecting it to go that fast. I might say that maybe if there was a dancer with you, they might ask for it to be a bit slower. So what we're trying to think about is accompanying dancers, and you know they have to do very precise footwork, and it's they also use their hands, gestures, and there's a lot to fit in with the music. So you don't have to think of it as maybe quite so speedy, I would say. And when we look at the treatises from the 18th century, a treatise, as I said last night, is like a teaching method. It's just like how to play the cello, but from 300 years ago. And they do say things, they give examples of speeds of certain dances and things like the gavotte. And they do say it isn't a fast dance. So you don't have to think of it as being too fast. But do you know what the characteristic of the gavotte dance is? What would you say is the main feature of it? Anyone, I'm not just asking you. So it has two upbeats. That's the main thing. So those upbeats are light. The first two notes that you play, it's like a half bar, isn't it? And then you're on the bar line downbeat. So you can actually think of doing this, and even on the violin, you could play two upbeats to start with. I'm sure you've never done it before, and I'm sure it sounds very strange, but that's the idea that we want. We want something very light, and then the downbeat, it's not an accent, but it's a more weighty note, or a bit more emphasis on it. So you could try that. Also, you notice with that piece, it had sort of two sections. There was a lower one, wasn't there? And you
the music
try
is
and make that sound a bit different, which you did. But just be aware that, you know, it is a different thing. Have you got the music?
Yes.
Oh, right.
So from this different, when it goes down to the C string, it has a different character.
Yes, exactly. So, and I noticed that you did some rubato. Do you know, is that the word that you would use? You slowed down a little bit in one section and then came back in, which is fine. But with a dancer, they probably wouldn't want you to do that. But because we don't have dancers, there's two ways of doing it. One with dancers, and they will say, excuse me, but that's too fast, or they might say, excuse me, but that's too slow, because they've got particular steps they have to do, and they have to fit in with music. But since you're being a soloist on your own, you can easily do that, what you did, which was, it sounded nice, and you did it in a nice way, and led into the... Do you want to try just taking the tempo off a little bit, and doing a little bit slower? Do you want to do it with the piano?
Yeah.
Yeah, okay. Dancers also get very out of breath, so that's another thing to think about when they're dancing, that they need to, you know, feel relaxed.
careful. These open A's, beautiful to do an open A, but you don't want them to stick out because they're a second beat, which is a weak beat. So when you've got that low A, yum, bum, the high A is just a little echo of it. So because it's an open A, which is a really loud string, and it's an up bow, you've got to really lighten off so that it's almost pretend it's not there, okay? Otherwise, everything will be
that was the thing I noticed the most, that note was sticking out, and it isn't an important one.
Yeah.
If you can think about that, would be brilliant. Your high, you've obviously been practicing the high bit, because that was really good. And I love the way that you phrased off at the end. It was so beautiful, that long note at the end. Just waiting all the way until the double puff. Thank you. Really lovely. While there's a changeover, I'll say a few more things, but I think next time we have, because I think,
You want to go back to the order that you
well, I think William, can William play? Because otherwise we're going to have two Lully Gavottes in a row.
Yeah.
So just while you're getting ready, I've put some things up there, but what I want you to think, pretend that we're in the house at their side, in Lully Gavotte, and it's all very sumptuous. Do you know who Lully is? Anyone? Anyone who's playing Lully, do you know anything about him? He was the master of music for the king, and he wrote all the music for his operas, and the king actually danced. So he wasn't just the king sitting on a throne, he got up and he danced on the stage. So in those days, he was in the 17th century, but it was very, very important with this dance stuff. And everyone would understand what these dances were and how to play them. And I'm going to tell you something else. I'm glad you're all sitting down, because the piece that Edward played wasn't by Lully. I wonder if you know that. Who's playing it? Who else is playing the Lully piece? The Gavotte? You are? Okay, it's not by Lully, and it probably isn't a Gavotte. Well, it isn't a Gavotte, actually. So, the piece is by Marais, who was a pupil of Lully. He was another French composer, and he wrote a collection of pieces which he dedicated to Lully, his teacher. And the piece, in his collection of pieces, you can find it, you can look, if you go on the internet, you can find the piece, you can find the manuscript. It's got lots of double and triple strokes, lots of chords, so that's not how it's been written out for, in your exam book. But it's called a rondo, so it's not a gavotte, but it just proves that a rondo is very similar to a gavotte. But there we go. That's just a little